rise. So that is main issues.
It's going to be a tense one, I hope, with Al-Jamah here.
Yes.
ACDP,
What
the old guy in the group. What are people wanting you to achieve for them?
Look, let me say firstly, and preface my answer by saying that the position of the ACDP in terms of its biblical worldview is well known. The ACDP has not veered from its particular worldview. Our worldview and our position in terms of the Bible and our position in terms of where we stand as a Christian political party is well known. Over the last 30 years, there's not a finger that can be pointed at the ACDP in terms of a biblical worldview. We will not detract from that worldview because every political party has a particular worldview. We are not going to ask Al-Jamah or the ANC or the Communist Party to move away from their worldview. That's their preference. Let's come to what the people are saying. When one looks at what ordinary South Africans are saying, ordinary South Africans are talking about unemployment. Ordinary South Africans are talking about we do not have jobs. Ordinary South Africans are talking about housing. Ordinary South Africans are talking about health issues. Ordinary South Africans are talking about education. On the education sector, it is a travesty that we basically have 81% of our grade 4s that are unable to read with meaning. And so they are saying to us, the ACDP needs to do something. Look at our policies. For example, we talk about bringing in a Cambridge-like education system. When it comes to unemployment, we have some 32% unemployed. On the expanded definition of unemployment, 41%. Youth unemployment is sitting at some 44%. So the ACDP is able to speak to these particular issues. Our worldview, as I said, is well known, but we also need to be able to speak to the bread and butter issues of the ordinary man on the street. And the ACDP has been doing that. We have a debt to GDP of some 74%. We have, in terms of our deficit on our national account, we have a deficit of 300 billion rand added to the 5 trillion rand deficit. Government is building generational debt. This is what the people are saying. We want our children to be, and our children's children to be free of debt. We do not want government to take our children into debt. What is the ACDP's policy on economics? And an independent economist indicated that when one looks at the ACDP's policies on finance, the ACDP has some of the best solutions in order to turn South Africa's economy around. What the ACDP needs to do is to be able to foreground its issues so that more people are able to hear of the solutions that the ACDP presents. We've heard the cry, we've heard the groaning, we understand the biblical preface that when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the ungodly are in authority, the people mourn. Corruption is those who cause the people of South Africa to mourn. And so the ACDP brings solutions. We're saying we've heard the groaning, we've heard the mourning, and so we've come with our SOS, which is service. The SOS comes to us. Our response is service, order, and safety.
Al-Jamah, the 17-year-old, what are people saying to you during the campaign period? What do they want you to focus on?
Okay, so we've got both an international focus as well as a national focus. I think the premise when we look at Al-Jamah's Islamic values espoused is that we oppose all forms of oppression. We oppose all forms of disrespect for life and human dignity, which is why the Palestinian issue is such a huge concern for us. From an international law perspective, our ICJ and our international frameworks, the United Nations General Assembly itself, in previous opinions and in previous findings by the court, has found that a belligerent occupier, which is what Israel has been identified as, does not have a right to self-defense. So we are seeing a hijacking of a particular narrative based on what the law and precedent already says. When we springboard from that, then we look at what the actual nation state's right is to self-defense, and we can go into a whole hot debate about that. But the legal frameworks are what they are. The ICJ has already found a probability of genocide, which is why 2 court orders was already issued in order to protect the Palestinian people. So that is our line, and that is why we support the pro-Palestinian agenda to have a free nation from the river to the sea, where, like in South Africa, I mean, you know, the two-state solution was proposed here initially as well, and we rejected that because we had little enclaves, little Bantustans that would definitely not have survived over time. And we see the same thing being proposed for Palestine. We say, since we have rejected it as something that's not good enough for us, why are we trying to impose that on another nation? So that's on our international position.
What are the people saying? What do they want you to do?
Nationally. So when we look at how our resources are allocated for one can see whether it be policing resources from national, or whether it be our primary prevention issues when it comes to unemployment. How do you prevent and eradicate unemployment, and how do you address issues of crime, safety, and security? So we look at educational resources, we look at the resources in the criminal justice sector, but also social development and mental health services, which are totally skewed when we come to various communities. And it's the black and colored communities, and I hate using that term, but until we see social justice and better integration, which is what Al-Jamah wants.
Which term do you hate using?
The apartheid classifications of race.
We'll get into that, because I'm also interested in the colored question.
Exactly. So from an Islamic perspective, all humans are equal, irrespective of their race, irrespective of their nationality. So it accords very much, or at least our constitution accords very much to those views, and that is what we will continue to fight for. So we ask, why is the state actually being very antithetical to that? So are these communities, which I say still currently disadvantaged, receiving less resources from national and from local and provincial, despite it being different parties? So that is our fight. And our people have asked us and come to us where people are being evicted, pushed to the outskirts. Why are they still being subjected to apartheid-style policies and apartheid-style practices? So that is the oppression that Al-Jamah is continuing to fight within our own borders.
Is there a standout moment? We'll start from you and come this side. Is there a standout moment for you during your campaign where you were engaging the potential vote, where someone raised a crucial issue that stood out for you and that stuck in your mind, and that you thought, maybe this is something we should prioritize? This must be something that came from the ground, not from you, from your policies. When you were engaging the people, is there a moment, is there an issue that stood out that you can remember?
Our manifesto is driven by what the community is saying. So that is why, and when we look at our fiscal policies and our economic policies, we cannot divorce it from what's happening on the ground. And very often we see this disjuncture. So we have people in the ivory towers imposing policies which are imported from the West, from wherever internationally, without looking at our local context. So when we see the current situation that we are in, we do not see that the private sector is the panacea to our local communities' problems, because we find local communities, the informal sector in particular, which has such potential. Now, this is what's coming from the ground, where people are unable to run businesses from their homes, unable to run businesses from the established central business districts, whether it be Mitchell's Plain or whether it be Cape Town. Their goods are confiscated because of the bylaws that are in place. So we are saying, why are you doing that? Why are you confiscating frying pans on the goods of an old lady who's trying to make a living, trying not to wait for handouts from the state? The state should be facilitating their access and empowerment from that level. So local economic development is critical. We see the frameworks are stifling that.
There's no standard moment where you can say, there was a lady in Khayelitsha who said this. That's what I'm looking for.
So those are the very vendors, the informal settlement, the informal sector workers. We have people in Sultanaba, you said, they were running a business. It was thriving until the municipal agents came and said, look, you can't be running this business. They shut them down, cut off their livelihoods. We see people in Reiterwacht currently, elderly people being evicted from their homes after questionable evictions being granted, which we are challenging. These elderly people were taken with their goods, placed on a field in the middle of the night.
Okay.
How can we still have that in our democracy, in our constitutional democracy?
And for the ACDP, what stood out for you, a particular moment from a citizen or a potential voter?
You know, just prior to the elections, we had some in the Western Cape, in the area of Menenberg, we had some 47 murders in 48 hours. So within a space of 2 days, 47 people lost their lives. Now during on election day, in the same area, voting stations had to be, in a sense, closed. Party agents had to be shuttled back to their homes because of a flare-up of gang violence. And again, it speaks to the issue of crime and the safety of South African citizens. What we have in South Africa, sadly, is some 85 murders per day, 135 rapes per day. and the rate of crime in South Africa is unacceptable. And so people on the ground of all different groupings, ethnicities, are saying to us, ACDP, you need to be able to assist us so that we can feel safe in South Africa again. The ACDP has some of the best crime policies. Some of our policies have been actually taken on board by the current government when it comes to issues like, for example, no bail for certain crimes like rape, murder, hijacking, and then also when it comes to restorative justice. Our policies on restorative justice have also been taken on board by the ruling party, where young adults who have committed a first-time crime, we're saying don't throw them into jail where they become habitual criminals, but rather let's see how we can actually restore them to become productive citizens of society. So this is one of the key issues. I think it's the issue of crime that certainly needs to be addressed, and that has actually come to us time and time and again as the ACDP.
Crime remains a huge issue in the Western Cape. And I've been looking at crime stats. I think places like Nyanga, Fuleni, Delft are always there at the top of the murder stats in terms of the murders reported at police stations.
Absolutely.
There was
one standout moment for Hope4SA.
Yes, there was two. People are very hungry for food. Hunger for food. Thousands and thousands go and sleep every night, go to bed without food. Let's stand out. People that was in our meetings come to our meetings and they are starving. That is one of the things. But while we are busy putting up in the campaign that come from the ground posters, the next moment somebody passed me. I was previous in the police and I want to become the Minister of Police. And when he passed me, I think it was the Holy Spirit that helped me. And I said, come here. And then I see there's a shop. And I take him, and the next moment, he was full of drugs, mandrax, tick, all. And I arrest him, a citizen arrest there, and I chase the car as well that go, and we arrest also that guy with drugs. And in September, that case will come forth. So in our campaigning, we already arrested drug smugglers, because when we look at crime, only at the crime that is at government side, 250 billion that is stolen every year. You can count all the sheep. You can buy all the sheep in this country with that money, and you can buy 1 year all the maize.
Are you a farmer?
I farm with Christian animals.
Okay.
I will tell you now. But but listen, all the maize, and then you can send 20 million children for free education with 1 year's 250 billion that they stolen at government side.
Okay. Even if there's a specific questions, politicians have a way of going off course just to push their own narratives. We're going to a break. We're going to come up with solutions on how you sort out those issues. You are still on SABC News Live on SABC Plus. There was Hope4SA, ACDP, and Al-Jamah. Come back and hear what they have to say.
In the nation at Crossroads, duty calls.